So if you guys are as into building cars as I am, then I'm sure you guys know all about what I like to call the while we're in there paradox. Now the while we're in there paradox basically states that whenever you have a pretty decent sized build that you're trying to accomplish, you're always going to find smaller and smaller little details that you want to work on until it basically ends up taking forever to do. Now today, we're going to be doing exactly that. So when I was back in high school, when I originally got my FC, I was a lot more into drifting. And I actually ended up drifting it into a curb. And as you guys have probably noticed if you've seen the videos, this wheel does not necessarily look too good. Kind of hard to see, but at certain angles, you might be able to see it there. It's actually got a little bit of positive camber. So we got 90 degrees on the floor, and on the wheel we have 92 degrees. So 2 degrees of positive camber, and that's not the cool one. Which is not ideal, and it honestly kind of makes the car drive like dookie. So today, hopefully we're going to be fixing that along with a few other things. Because of course, while we're in there, I mean, we might as well make sure the engine bay looks good, right? I don't know why I always do this to myself. So the fact that we have the engine out of the car basically gives us a little bit of a better visual of what we got going on. And yeah, it's not great. So I went ahead and took some measurements from another FC, and I found that the frame rails on this thing, right around that area, are a little bit too close together, which means that when I had the impact, it pushed the control arm in and it pushed the frame rail in, which means that the subframe's probably bent. And that's why I bought a new subframe. So this old girl is hopefully gonna be a good amount more straight than that one. And I'm also gonna have to push in the frame rail right over here. You can kind of see it's not really sitting very nicely. It's definitely not perpendicular to the ground, so I'm gonna have to figure something out to push that out. But before we get to that, I'm gonna go ahead and take all of this stuff out, because honestly the engine bay looks disgusting. You can see right over here, my master cylinder decided to leak all of this brake fluid down on my frame rail and on the booster, and everything down here is rusting. So we're gonna fix that. So I'm gonna go ahead, get all of this stuff out of the engine bay. It's gonna be so much work, but I'll throw you guys on a time lapse. We'll get this shit going. Alright, so we have reached the point where basically most of the stuff is out of the bay. I got the main engine harness out of there. Honestly, it was super difficult to get out and it wasn't a lot of fun. The body harness over here is going to be quite a big ordeal to get out, and I don't know if I want to tackle that today. However, I did get the steering rack undone from the steering column. So now I think I'm gonna go ahead and put the car in the air and see if I can pull the old subframe with the steering rack and all that kind of stuff and test fit the new one, see how far off my frame is and how much I really have to do to fix it. So now that we got the subframe out of the car, we can go ahead and look at what's actually wrong with the car. So if we look under that frame rail, super straight. This one, I don't know how much the camera's gonna pick it up, but not so much. You can see right around there, there's a pretty good bend. And then the rest of it's pretty straight. So we're gonna have to figure out how to get that out of there. I'm gonna go ahead and work on taking all of the extra parts like the rack and the control arms off of this subframe and unwrap that subframe so that we can do some measurements and see what kind of a difference there is. Then we'll be taking that subframe, trying to fit it on the car, see how far off we are. I did some measurements, so I do know pretty close to how far we need to push this thing, but I just want to make sure. Alright, so right off the bat I'm seeing a little bit of damage. You guys can see this little centering pin is sitting a little sideways. And then the one from this side is actually missing, and it actually came out when I dropped the subframe. This is supposed to go right about there, but that got knocked out. You can see the hole for it is pretty friggin' ovaled. And this one looks like the subframe had shifted a little bit to the side. So I don't know if the subframe's actually bent or not. I'm gonna go ahead and unwrap this guy just to get some measurements and see what it looks like. Probably throw it on the car and see how far our bolts are. Okay, so that's our new subframe. Both of the centering pins are where they need to be. I'm going to get a tape measure and start measuring a few points across them just to make sure how bent that one is, if it is. 83 centimeters center to center on these holes. 81.3 centimeters. That's like 1.5 centimeters off. This one is compressed this way. The front, however, I'm not really foreseeing much. That one's at around 79. That one also looked like it took a little bit of a hit. I'm gonna try to throw this up. I honestly don't think it's gonna fit. So we'll take a look at it, see what it looks like in the car. And yeah, we're gonna have to bend this thing back quite a bit. So we've reached the point where we have pretty much run out of stuff that we can do to this thing today with the tools and parts that I have available to me. At this point, I figured out that I need a control arm, I need some ball joints, I need some control arm bushings, and I need to find a way to just squeeze those frame rails apart a little bit. I don't really know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to have to do some research and figure out how I want to go about that. If you guys have any suggestions, let me know in the comments. That being said, I called a couple body shops and literally everybody said they wouldn't be able to do anything for me. So that's not great. You guys know what we're about on this channel. We do most of the stuff ourselves, so there's no point in taking it somewhere else when we could just fix it ourselves. That being said, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys next time.